So Brentford 3, Newcastle United 1. Let's talk winners and losers from Newcastle United perspective. Of course, there are no winners this week. How could there possibly be? Such a disappointing performance. And don't worry, I think I'm going crazy too. Watching the same thing again. Similar result, similar performance, similar amount of confusion as to what we're trying to do when we have substitutes coming off the bench. All kinds of craziness going on, folks. Let's get into it. My first loser of the day, and I'm sorry to do this because he's probably concussed right now, but it is Nick Pope. He seems to have developed this willingness and this, I don't want to call it an ability because it's not a good thing, to want to punch instead of catching. There are several moments this season he could have just caught it. You could have just caught it, Nick, and no one would have worried about it, but he punches it. And not only does he punch it, he's not very good at punching. Arguably responsible for West Ham's first goal last weekend. Responsible for the first goal on Sunday against Brentford. Also at fault for the goal against Arsenal, the equaliser. He's currently leading the Premier League in errors leading to goals. Look, Nick Pope is above average shot stopper, and for that we love him. And he's been a fantastic goalkeeper for Newcastle. Remember, we signed him for £10 million. He has given us more than that £10 million back, and he's been a really great goalkeeper for us. But the distribution is one thing. We all know about the distribution. I don't really need to go into it. But if you're going to add flapping at crosses, if you're going to add punching when you should catch, if you're going to add punching thin air and causing us problems from set pieces, particularly long throws, which we all know are the rage this season, and we're going to get a ton more of them, then that's going to be an issue. Look, he has a lot of credit in the bank, both from Eddie Howe and Newcastle fans. I don't expect us to make a move on that anytime soon, but we do have a goalkeeper in the wings who maybe has a higher ceiling than him. We have a goalkeeper in the wings who certainly can distribute. Any of you at St James's Park for the League Cup tie against Spurs or watching on TV will remember the audible groan from the crowd when they watched Aaron Ramsdale hit a 60-yard pass straight to Joe Willock's feet. It was like, wow, our goalkeeper can do that too. That's crazy. So that is something to be aware of. Look, if this continues for the next couple of games and the next couple of weeks, months, we definitely still need to have this conversation. But as it is, we hope he gets better soon, and we hope that he can either start catching the ball or start getting some real distance on those punches, because it is turning into a problem. Second loser of the day. I hope you appreciate I could have picked anyone from this team, but I'm going to pick the same loser as I picked last week. And again, it's not his fault. It's Nick Faltamata. Nick has, from the last 3 games that he has played, can you guess how many shots he has? 1 shot, and that was a header. He is averaging 0.58 shots per game in the Premier League, and he has the grand total of 4 shots on target in the Premier League this season. We are not even close to getting the best out of Nick Faltamata, and we are not even close to getting the best out of him in the build-up either. It's causing us issues. It's causing us issues in multiple areas of the pitch, and it kind of feels a bit cruel at the moment. I don't know about you, but watching him running around like a pressing forward by himself, and he is just not working for him. We need to get help to him. We need to get more support to him. We need to get players around him. Look, I don't care where you get them from. You can take them from central midfield. You can push 8s up to help him like we did against Spurs in the Cup, and that actually worked pretty well. Don't know why we went away from that. Or you can get the wingers to do that, and you can get the fullbacks to hold the width. I don't care. There's multiple ways of doing it. You could even change formation if you want to be radical. Get someone playing as a 10, or get someone playing up there in a 2 up front. But the fact of the matter is that he has a very unique skill set, and we are just not using it. We are not even getting close to using it. He's sitting there in the middle of the pitch coming deep. Malik Chow is kind of the only guy who's hitting him in there. And we are really, really struggling to get the best out of him at both ends of the pitch. So, he's a loser this week because we have shown no progression. It's been, 3 months since we signed him? We look as clueless now as we did when we first played with him as how to get the best out of him, if that makes sense. His teammates don't look like they know how to do that, and that's a worry. So, he is the second loser of the week. He is super talented, but we're going to have to change our style if we're going to get the best out of him. I think that is pretty obvious. Third loser of the week is Eddie Howe. And look, not taking Dan Burn off, we all saw it. That's what I mean when I'm like, we're going crazy. We could all see that happening. And we've seen it multiple times. It's kind of crazy. Like, you're like, how can we be here again 2 years after watching Dan Burn play at left back? And look, this is not hating on Dan Burn. Dan Burn has been a great player for us, has been a great servant, is obviously a local lad. And at centre-back has probably been one of our better players over the last year or two. But Dan Burn at left-back, again, it feels kind of unfair on him. What worried me most is not the initial, the in-game management and the lack of kind of taking responsibility and doing what needed to be done in that moment. If any of you listened to the post-match press conference, Eddie Howe said the reason he didn't take him off was because we needed Dan Burn for set pieces. That's really worrying because no other Premier League team has a 6'7" left back, and no other Premier League team needs that, and they find solutions to defend set pieces without that. At that moment on the pitch, we had a 6'7" striker and also two giant centre halves. If we can't find solutions from those guys, then we're really, really struggling. We got to be able to react to what goes on the pitch. The idea that you would enter the pitch and know that there is one position on the pitch and one player on the pitch who you are never going to touch, who no matter what you see in front of you, you are going to keep him on because there may be some long throws in the game. Man, that's crazy, right? Am I not the only one? That just sounds so crazy. Means that we are so unresponsive, so unreactive, and helped to explain what was just so obviously going to happen the moment we got away with that first penalty call. So not only for that reason is Eddie Howe one of the losers for the day, but for the second reason is that complete lack of plan B. Again, we saw it. There is no plan B. We know this at this point. It's more of the same. It's press harder. It's press faster. And it doesn't work. It's not working. Eddie Howe's a great communicator. So I'm sure his message is getting across to the players, but the players are just incapable of playing how he wants to play at this moment. And I want to take this moment to get something off my chest. I disagree with this kind of like mainstream media narrative, if you want to call it that says we are a bad away team. We're a bad team. We're not just bad away team. We've been bad. We've played 3 bad teams at home in the Premier League and won by 1 goal. We played a team who lost its manager in the Champions League and won, who just sacked its manager in Benfica. And we played Athletic Bilbao when they had almost no attacking players. We're a bad team, folks, at this moment in time. Why are we a bad team? Well, we show a complete inability to build up through the thirds. We just cannot build up through the back. And look, you have a couple of options when teams are pressing you, right? You can either go through the press, you can go around the press, or you can go over the press. I don't really care what we do, but we need to find success in one of them because we seem incapable of going through the press. Maybe with a Bruno at 6, we have that ability to go through a press, but again, we are really missing someone like Tino Livramento's ability to carry the ball through a press, or Lewis Hall's ability to carry the ball or pass the ball through a press. We're really struggling to progress the ball. And I think we're also missing a bit of Fabi Shah's distribution, if I'm honest. Malik Thiaw's been great and played a couple of passes. I'm not looking at him. I'm looking at the other side. So we kind of are doing neither. We don't have the ability to go around the press when we don't have someone like Anthony Gordon in the team. Wide players aren't really great at carrying the ball. If you're talking Murphy or if you're talking Harvey Barnes, almost forgot his name there. Sorry, Harvey, scored a good goal. So yeah, and we can't go over the top because our big centre forward comes deep. So we need to find a solution to this. It's causing us a lot of problems. It's meaning that we're just not creative in any way. We can't beat anyone's press, and we keep handing over the ball to teams in our own half, which of course is a danger in itself. Those are my winners. Those are my losers. Sorry, definitely weren't the winners of the week. The 3 losers. I want to make a general point as well before I end the video. I want to ask you a question. There's something in elite managers that I have noticed, that others have noticed, that I think is kind of really important in an elite manager. And that is this sense of ruthlessness, this ability to move on from players, even though you love these players and you respect these players, when they've given you everything that they can give you. Think back to Sir Alex Ferguson, for those of you old enough to remember. Ruthless. Most famously with Roy Keane. Built multiple teams. Same with Pep Guardiola. And look, Mikel Arteta certainly isn't in this category at this moment in time. But do you remember how ruthless he was? David Raya changing the goalkeeper. Is Eddie Howe ruthless in that way? Do we have any evidence of Eddie Howe being that ruthless? Because I feel like there's evidence of Eddie Howe doing the opposite. There's evidence of Eddie Howe keeping Matt Ritchie and Paul Dummett in the team for no apparent reason. In the squad, for no apparent reason. For 2 seasons ago, see Emil Kraft and Jamal Lascelles this season. They're never going to play. When they do play, they're not really good enough. What's the point? I don't get it. Where's the ruthlessness? Why do we have 5 goalkeepers? Why is John Ruddy on the books when he can't even be the third choice goalkeeper? Max Thompson is instead. Doesn't make a ton of sense. Look, those players aren't really going to influence the first 11. They're not really a big deal. I get that. But they help to paint a picture of a manager who potentially hasn't been as ruthless as he should have been. And some of the players on the pitch, when you're talking about why we're not being as successful, we've got a 35 and a 34-year-old fullbacks on either side. What are we really expecting? Do we really foresee Kieran Trippier and Dan Burn being in our team in a year, in 2 years? Are we going to be ruthless? Move them on, no matter the cost in the short to medium term. Think Pep moving on from his goalkeeper. Joe Hart, back in the day, bringing in a goalkeeper. The goalkeeper who brought in, Claudio Bravo, had a lot of errors, but he knew in the long run he wanted to change it, and ultimately he got that goalkeeper in Edison and went on to win. Everything they're in is to win, most of them multiple times. Do we have that vision? Has Eddie Howe shown that vision? That willingness to be bad maybe for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, to be worse, but allow someone to be bedded in and get better, but ultimately be in a good place in a couple of seasons? Because I feel like we're living in this world where we should have made decisions on players 2 or 3 years ago. There's a couple of players in this squad who probably shouldn't still be starting in this team. And you can say, look, injuries have happened, that's why we're playing. But like I said a couple of weeks ago, that's our bad planning. Our bad planning means that our first choice left back is Lewis Hall. Our second choice left back is our first choice right back. And our third choice left back was our first choice centre back. That's on us. Where is the ruthlessness? So I want to finish with that question. I really don't know the answer to that. From everything I've seen, Eddie Howe hasn't had that ruthless streak. He doesn't have to be perfect, but I would love him to get better at that and get better at understanding when it's time to move on from players. Look, I get it. It's difficult. You've been in the trenches with these guys. You love these guys. You don't want to move on from them. But I think we all accept that if we're playing with 30-plus-year-old fullbacks in the Premier League in 2025, on both sides, we are in trouble. And if we fail to really be ruthless in this squad and move on from this squad and evolve this team and build another team, because that's another thing. I think this team and this team that's given us so much joy, this team that has finally broken our duck, brought a trophy back to Newcastle for the first time since 1969, that iteration of this team is over. Whether you accept that or not, it's over. Like, one piece has already left and a couple of other pieces frankly need to be phased out. We need to build a new team. I don't think Eddie Howe should be under any pressure at the moment. I think Eddie Howe should be given the space and the time to work this out. But what I want to see from Eddie Howe is that ability to start building around some new, younger talents, Lewis Miley, for example, and start moving on from players who we know we need to move on from because we know they're not the future. As ruthless and as heartless that may be, this is professional sport, and we can't afford to keep putting players out there who are not good enough. And whether that be because they're playing in the wrong position or they're just not there anymore, it's kind of irrelevant, right? We need to show that ruthless streak. All right, thank you so much for listening. Of course, let me know your comments in the bottom below. And if any of you have any good comments, I'm happy to come back with a video and we'll talk about those comments. We'll do a Q&A. We'll get some questions in. We'll get some answers. And we'll try not to stew too much in this international window. and hope we can find a solution. Oh, one more thing I wanted to mention. One thing I think that might be a saving grace this season is we are going to have Vissa back soon. We're going to have those fullbacks soon, and we may be able to go back to that style that we are so familiar with. That could be, I think, in the short term, a good solution for this team. But of course, it's injury dependent, it's AFCON dependent. But I think we all agree that in the medium to long term, we need to find a new way of playing. And that doesn't have to be revolutionary, but we need to find a way of getting the best out of Big Nick. And we need to really have some more depth in some key areas and adapt. Doesn't have to be revolution, can be evolution. But we need to start playing in a way that is really suiting the best aspects, the best prospects on the pitch. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Take it easy. Peace.